Right, now let's have a look at question B1 of the 2018 SDM lab assessment. Now, no surprises, I guess, given the discussion of it. Here we've got a sequence diagram which you have to be able to read, even though I promised not to ask you to write one in Papyrus. So consider the Java code in files order.java and customer.java. You got those when you did the get papers, of course, in conjunction with the sequence diagram shown below. The Java and the UML are inconsistent in several ways. Assuming that both the UML and the class customer are correct, modify the Java code for order to be consistent with it. Include comments to explain briefly what you've changed and why. Now notice that we're not being asked to work out the full correct code for order. We can't do that from one scenario, but we're just being asked to produce some Java code that's consistent with the diagram. So here is the class order that we were given. I'm going to edit this in Emacs just because that's my favourite place to edit Java code. You're perfectly welcome to load it into Eclipse and do it there if that's your favourite way. I'm just going to make a copy of this. Let's get focus. I'm going to make a copy of this in demo just for fun. Now let's have a look. So what's going on here? We've got some object we don't care about of class check B1 that's just starting the whole thing off, and it's sending a message link to an object of class order, and then the whole scenario is about how order handles that message. Okay. So the very first thing we should check is that the order class does indeed have a link to method that takes an argument of type customer, because this CU here is the same as the instance name of the customer that's in the lifeline of the sequence diagram. Remember that instance names in lifelines of sequence diagrams are only of significance within the sequence diagram, so you don't need to have any correspondence between instance names in the diagram and variable names in the code, although you can if you like, but the fact that that is CU and this is CU tells us that it's this very customer which is being passed as argument to the link to method. Okay, so looking at the order code, indeed we do have a link to method that takes a customer as argument. So far so good. In the code, what this does is it does c.linkLastOrder with a new order, so it sends the link last order message to the customer that was its argument, passing it a new order object, and then it sets the string delivery address to the result of doing getAddress on the customer that was passed to it as argument. Okay, so let's see what happens in the sequence diagram. So in the sequence diagram, the first thing that happens is that we do getAddress to customer. That doesn't match, because in the code we do link last order first. So, but we do a getAddress second in the code. Now let's just check, there's no other occurrence of getAddress here, so it looks as though maybe these lines are just in the wrong order. So let's hypothesize that. There are multiple right answers, of course, given that we only have to be consistent, but this is probably a kind of least change solution. Okay, so let's comment that the diag shows this happening first. Okay, the diagram doesn't show us, by the way, that the result of getAddress is assigned to delivery address, but given that that's what was happening in the original code, we might as well assume that that's what's happening. Okay. Now, and by the way, we'd better check, just for our own peace of mind, that the customer class really does have a getAddress method, and indeed it does. There it is. And it returns an address, which is of type string. There you are, I managed to make it all consistent. So what happens next in the sequence diagram? We send another message to the customer object. This one is called link last order, and it takes OR as argument. Now what's OR? OR is the instance name of this very order object that is in the process of handling the link to. Okay, so let's check the code. It's true that we're going to send link last order to the customer object that was the argument to us in the first place. But aha, we have another problem, because in the code the argument to the link last order is not the object that's currently handling the link to message, it's a whole new order object. So that is a bug. So what we need to do there is we need to replace the new order object by this. Okay, diag shows this object there, can't type, being passed. I really can't type when I'm being watched. Not a new one. Okay, so far so good. Now we're almost there. What's supposed to happen next in the diagram? Well, when we send the linked last order object to the customer is supposed to send GetTotal back to this object. Okay, now that had better be kind of correct because we're told that the customer class is correct. Now, customer, when it receives linked last order, does some stuff. Aha, I see. It does some stuff that involves this array list of orders, and we're obviously not modelling that in the sequence diagram. And then it does do something that involves sending GetTotal to order, so that seems promising. What happens in the order code when an object of class order receives the GetTotal message? It doesn't have a GetTotal method, and so that isn't going to work. Both the customer code and the sequence diagram show an object of class order receiving a GetTotal message, so it had better be able to interpret it. So what we need is a new method, public, and let's make it int just for consistency, GetTotal, and it doesn't seem to have any arguments in either place, so we'll just do it like that. Now, what should the body of this GetTotal method be? Well, strictly speaking, we can't tell. The sequence diagram doesn't tell us, and all the customer class tells us is that we're expecting it to be something that it's possible to add to an int, so an int would be nice. It might be reasonable to assume that we're probably going to return that convenient value attribute of the class, so let's try that. But anything else would do fine since we don't actually know. I'm just going to say maybe, and here we're going to say need this method that sequence diag and customer both show. That's a perfectly good comment. Okay, so now let's just do a quick check. Do we believe that the sequence diagram is consistent with the order code? It does get address, and then it does link last order, and then link last order is going to call GetTotal, call back GetTotal to this very object, and we're going to return, yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think that'll do.